All right, I want to remind you guys of some quotes as we remember those that have fallen to give us our freedoms. George Mason said, "I ask, who are the militia? They consist now of the whole people, except a few public officers." Benjamin Franklin said, "They that can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety." Thomas Jefferson said, "I prefer dangerous freedom over peaceful slavery." He also said, "No man shall ever be debarred the use of arms." He also said, "What country can preserve its liberties if their rulers are not warned from time to time that their people preserve the spirit of resistance? Let them take arms." George Washington said, "A free people ought not only to be armed, but disciplined." And who can forget the Thomas Jefferson quote, "The tree of liberty must be fertilized from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. It is its natural manure." And let's not forget our own Declaration of Independence, which says something to the effect, "After a long chain of abuses by a tyrannical government, it is not only our right, it is our duty." That's a very important word, your duty. You heard of duty and honor? It is our duty to throw off such a tyrannical government. If you want your children to live free, then I suggest you think very carefully about what the founders of this country had to say in that regard. Pastor Eric Philpott gave a blockbuster sermon yesterday. I was not there, but my friend told me about it. He's given me permission to upload it. I've heard parts of it, and I plan to listen to the whole thing. I suggest you listen to the whole thing as well. But the reason I'm making this video is a draft idea. It's like the case of Schaeffer Cox is extremely complicated. There's a lot of different angles, and Satan has spun his web of deception and lies all around this case, and we need something that we can use to break through the lies and deception that Satan has spun. Now, I don't know about you, but like I have a life I got to live. I got a roof that needs to be repaired. I got a lawnmower that's leaking oil. I got a belt on my truck that I need to replace at some point. I got a yard that needs to be mowed. I mean, there's things around the house that need to be done. And I never know when I'm going to get the opportunity to talk about Schaeffer Cox's case, right? I never know when I'm going to get the opportunity to jump on a radio show and let's talk about Schaeffer Cox. And I've got to have an acronym in my head that helps me remember all of Satan's darts that he's used in the case of Schaeffer Cox. And like I said before, and I'm not joking, I'm going to make it my life's mission to raise awareness about the case of Schaeffer Cox. But I wanted to give an acronym, and the acronym I came up with this morning, I'm not saying that it's the best acronym. If you can come up with one that's better, or if you can add to this one, please do so. But we need to be thinking about things to help us raise awareness about Schaeffer Cox. And imagine you're in an elevator with somebody that God just put you in the right place at the right time, and you got like a few minutes to talk about Schaeffer Cox. You need something to bring to your head real quick, right? And here's what I came up with this morning as I was thinking about this. And again, if you can come up with something better, please do so. But the acronym is FOR Justice, F-O-R, Justice. And the first F is the most evil institution in the whole world. The F in FOR is Federal Reserve. It's by far the most evil institution in the whole world. If you understand how they steal and rob from our honest labor, our hard-working labor, you will understand what's going on. Not only that, but they use fiat money to pay off their evildoers. The prosecutors, the government informants, all of the evil agenda in the Hollywood, they use the fiat currency to promote pornography, to anti-Christian things, homosexuality, sodomy, abortions. You go through the list, the Federal Reserve is funding some aspect of that. Okay, it's the most evil institution in the world. Why am I bringing up this with regards to Schaeffer Cox? Because Schaeffer Cox understood how evil the Federal Reserve was, and he talked about it all the time. And that was a big threat because he was raising awareness about the Federal Reserve. Okay, let's go on quickly, and you can make an hour-long program about every single thing that I'm about to mention, but I can't do that today. Maybe at some point, we'll just take an hour and we'll talk about each one of these items individually, but I just want to lay out the list right now. Okay, the first F in FOR is Federal Reserve. The O in FOR, F-O-R, is OCS. I think it stands for Organization of Children's Services, or Operation of Children's Services, but the OCS in Alaska was threatening to take away Schaeffer's son. And he was, I don't, look, you need to read the details, but they're absolutely evil and wicked. It was led by a lady by the name of Wendy Williams. She needs to be held accountable for her actions, because that put Schaeffer in a very bad position where they were threatening to take away his son. And then you send in the government agents to provoke him to violence, and it was just a recipe for disaster. The R in 4 is ring the Liberty Bell. Schaeffer came up with a great idea of ringing the Liberty Bell, and anytime a patriot got in trouble, he rang the Liberty Bell. People would come with cell phone cameras, not to aggravate the situation, but to simply record the situation to make sure that the law enforcement officials were abiding by the Constitution that they swore to. That's FOR, Federal Reserve, OCS, Operation Children's Services, and ring the Liberty Bell. You got Justice, Justice. The J in Justice is the judicial system is absolutely rampant with corruption. The Department of Justice is run by absolutely evil, wicked, reprobate people, run by Loretta Lynch. There's no victim, there should be no crime. You need to understand how fully informed jury association, FIGA, you need to understand that they rarely lose at a federal court level. What happened in Ken Hovind's case was an absolute miracle of God, but they rarely lose. The reason they rarely lose is not because they're so good, it's because they're so wicked, and they've bent the justice, and they balanced. The Lord said unjust weights and unjust injustices are an abomination to the Lord, but they bent the courtroom rules in favor of the federal system, and it's absolutely wicked how they run their federal courts. So the J in Justice is the judicial system, rampant corruption. The A is the undercover informants or undercover agents. I'm talking about suspected undercover agent Aaron Bennett, Hell's Angel J.R. Olson, and also you got the sodomite lover Bill Fulton, a libertarian in the form of approving gay marriage is what he said. So you got undercover agents that were sent in, and they threatened Schaeffer and his family's life. And you couple that with the fact that the OCS was threatening to take away his kid. It's horrific what this government did to Schaeffer Cox. And so you have the undercover agents and recording everything he said, which he thought was private conversation. Okay, then you have S, the JUS, the Second Amendment. Schaeffer stood up for the Second Amendment. He started a militia. He climbed Mount McKinley 3 times. If I had time, I'd go into the story about how a pilot flew him off to the bush in Alaska and forgot that he was there, and he had to survive on his own for, 6 months, 3 months, I forget the exact time frame. But he's got some incredible life stories, and he's a very, very young man. So his standing up for the Second Amendment threatened the Obama administration's agenda to take away our guns and all their false flags like Sandy Hook, and I could go into a lot of others. Just like happened over in Australia, they're trying to mirror what happened in America with false flags on schools and stuff like that. Ted Stevens, okay, Ted Stevens and the Polar Pen team. That's what that 66-page document was about. That was the outline of the Schaeffer Cox case. You need to read that document. It's incredibly important. But the same Polar Pen team that got Ted Stevens, and my understanding is Ted Stevens was the longest running U.S. Republican in American history, and they went after him and got him on, said that he was a tax fraud. It was all bogus, all a political target of the Obama administration. Ted Stevens did not win the election, and a Democrat won the election, and in comes Obamacare, right? And they got rid of Ted Stevens, and that allowed Obamacare to come in. That allowed the Democrats to have enough filibuster proof to bring in Obamacare. And then Ted Stevens dies in a plane crash. How suspect is that? Okay, so you have judicial system, rampant corruption, undercover agents threatening violence against Schaeffer and his family, recording everything that he says, provoking him, and then you have the Second Amendment, which Schaeffer stood up for. I've already mentioned Ted Stevens and how the Polar team, the same Polar team that took down Senator Ted Stevens, also went after Schaeffer. And then you have the invasion of privacy. If this case isn't a government invasion of privacy, I don't know what is. They monitored everywhere he went. They sent in government informants to track everything that he said verbally. Once they arrested him, they went through every single piece of paper. They went through every single thing that he had bought for his militia. They used it against him in court. It's horrific how this thing has it just showed how the government has an invasion of privacy, monitors all your emails, even the notes he put on his phone. You know, the phone has a little notes application. He was making notes. They got that and used it against him in court. So you have invasion of privacy as the I in justice. The C is CMU prisons. You know, I just recently learned that the CIA is not supposed to operate on American soil. What the hell is CIA doing operating CMU torture prisons in Marion, Illinois, and Terre Haute, Indiana? That is, we should not stand for that. That could be a whole 2-3 hour video all by itself, and we could just raise hell and just scream and holler about CMU CIA ran torture prisons. And the fact that they're doing these prisons and sending men like Schaeffer Cox to those prisons should absolutely outrage you. And then we have exculpatory evidence was withheld by the prosecutors, knowingly so. And Steve Scrocky, Joseph Bottini, Yvonne Lamoureux need to be held accountable, and they need to be justice needs to be brought to those three evil bastards that knowingly withheld exculpatory evidence that would have cleared Schaeffer and showed that he had no plan to commit conspiracy to commit murder on federal agents. Let me tell you something. On this Memorial Day, where we remember those that have died, we can honor their memory the best way by standing up for those, our leaders today, that have stood up for us. And they have incarcerated a big majority of those leaders, and they will continue to do so. And who's going to stand up for you when your time comes to be incarcerated? When your time comes with the SWAT team, the FBI, Polar Pen team shows up at your door, who's going to stand up for you? We need to be standing up for people like Schaeffer Cox, Ken Hovind. I believe Pete Santilli should not be in prison. They came after Paul Hansen, and the list goes on. Even though I don't agree with the Bundys and being Mormon, they should not be in prison. And if we let the government continue to put these sorts of people in prison, shame on us. Shame on us this Memorial Day if we allow that to happen. And For Justice, FORJUSTICE. Let me see if I can just go through it real quick. Federal Reserve, Organization of Children's Services, Ring the Liberty Bell. Judicial System is rampant with corruption all the way up to the DOJ and Loretta Lynch. U is undercover agents. Everybody in America seems to be an undercover agent, narking us out and being a rat fink. You got S, Second Amendment. My God, we need to support the Second Amendment. T is, what is T? Ted Stevens. Ted Stevens and how they targeted Ted Stevens and how they brought in Obamacare once they took him out of the way. And then I is, what is it? Invasion of privacy. The government invasion of privacy that we're just accepting as normalcy nowadays. And then C is CMU prisons. If you don't know what CMU prisons is, it's because the government has suppressed that information. And then E is exculpatory evidence that would have proved Schaeffer's innocence, and that was knowingly withheld, and the prosecutors need to be held accountable and brought to justice. Listen, Jesus Christ got the glory when Ken Hovind walked out of prison, and Jesus Christ is going to get the glory when Schaeffer Cox walks out of prison. But as vessels and followers of Jesus Christ, we need to speak up. We need to say something. We need to be the resistance that our founders were that provided us this country to grow up in. They resisted tyranny from Britain. Are we going to resist the tyranny of our time, or are we just going to be marshmallow, limp-wristed, transgender, transvestites walking in the girls' bathroom and letting this foreigner fatwa faggot fraud destroy the country that our founders gave us, that our fathers gave us? Do you understand what's going on? I refuse to let this happen while I have a breath in my body, and I pray that you stand up as well. But even if you don't stand up, even if nobody else stands up, I am, and I know a few others that are, and we don't really care whether you do or not. We pray that you do, but you know what? Whether you do or not don't affect whether we are, and I pray that you join us so that we can all restore this country to the liberty that we enjoyed when we grew up. And if you don't, well, to hell with you then.